Welcome back to Process Mining Live. And with us, we have James Henderson from Dallas, Texas. Mr. Henderson has a passion for efficiency and process optimization. He's co-founder and CEO of Mindsy, a leader in process mining and process optimization. With over 20 years experience overseeing both domestic and international business strategies in a variety of industries, including security, information technology, and he's previously the president and COO of Avignon, and where he led the sales process resulting in over $1 billion acquisition. James, take it away.
Jim, thank you so much for the kind intro. Everyone, appreciate your time. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we dive into it. I believe there is the opportunity to ask questions along the way in the chat. Hopefully most of you are familiar with how to do that. I encourage you to put your questions in there. We're going to try and get some time at the end here to answer as many, if not all of them, as possible. If we don't get to all of them, we'll definitely follow up and try and get those answered offline for you. As mentioned myself, my name is James Henderson. Currently CEO of Mindsy, come from a background of actually operating businesses, and through my own happenstance and experience kind of led me into the industry of business process optimization, and specifically with Mindsy, process mining and process intelligence. For today's session, we're going to focus on something that is near and dear to my heart, which is not only leveraging process mining and process intelligence to gain new insights and how to improve your business operations, but also operationalizing them. How do we take what process mining delivers and actually put them into action within our business and make it part of the day-to-day of how we actually run? So to kick things off, let's dive in a little bit. Let's first start off with the difference between operationalizing or to operationalize and analysis, right? So when you think of process mining, most tend to lean on the analysis side, right? It is a extremely powerful tool for discovering how your business runs, where the challenges are, and determining where the opportunities are to improve it, right? Mapping business processes, analyzing bottlenecks, looking at root causes, understanding costs and where there's waste, loops, reworks, all these type of great things that we get from analyzing or doing an analysis on business processes. But these really tend to be things that we're looking at in the background, right? The analysis portion really tends to be, as I like to refer to it, an offline project. We're looking at all of the data that's been captured, we're analyzing the business workflows, and we're coming up with ways in order to implement new procedures, training, automation, and other things that will help then improve the business on a go-forward basis. The other side of that coin is really the focus of today's discussion, which is operationalizing, right? Not just looking at it as an offline project or an analysis project, but how do we take some of the capabilities within these systems and put them into action proactively. So looking at things like alerts, notifications, continuous monitoring, regular check-ins, and other things that process mining can be used for on a day-to-day basis to really implement improvements. And as we talk through the different slides, I'll sort of walk you through ideas on how to do that and where to look. But I wanted to refer to this quote. A colleague posted this the other day, and I thought it was very appropriate, so I added it into the presentation that I'm giving now, which is the idea: you didn't come this far to only come this far. So when you start looking at process improvement and process mining and process intelligence in general, don't just stop at the analysis side. Really look at how we can put it into a proactive part of our business operations. So if any of you have met me before and talked to me, I'm a huge fan of analogies. And when we think about operational and process mining, a great analogy for that is your gas gauge, right? Imagine going on a road trip and you run out of gas. So you look at the gas gauge, you're out of gas, you solve the problem, right? You pull into the nearest gas station, you fill up your tank. Now you've had a problem and you solved it and you're done. Well, I'm sure everyone in the audience has driven a car at some point or another, and you know enough to know that you're not actually done, right? Your gas gauge is an indicator of something that is occurring that you need to monitor. So even though you ran into that issue and you've now resolved that issue, it doesn't mean that it's permanently resolved. And the real indicator now is that you now need to know that you need to monitor that gas gauge on an ongoing basis to ensure that you don't run back into the same problems you had before. And I look at process intelligence and process improvement as the same thing. When you discover these opportunities and you make these improvements, never assume that it's a one-time thing. And I'll explain some reasons why as we go through this presentation here today. So the first stage we're going to start off with is why operationalize? And it's an interesting question, right? Process mining still primarily is considered an analysis tool, right? It's something that we use to look at data within our system, things that have happened, process flows that have already occurred to determine what's happening. Are there performance issues, conformance issues, automation opportunities, and all kinds of other things. But inherently, the reason why process mining is exploding in terms of use across the globe, right? Businesses of different size and scale, from small to medium businesses all the way up to the top enterprises in the world. Different use cases, right? Procure to pay, order to cash, those are just tip of the iceberg now. Credit loan applications, new customer onboarding, IT server provisioning, IoT device connectivity, a whole wide range of new use cases for process mining. And it's all because it provides a new way to look at operations, new insights that businesses haven't gotten before, and in a lot of cases can't get without the use of process mining and process intelligence tools. So if we're getting these new insights from systems, it is only logical to then benefit from those insights and use them proactively in our day-to-day operations, right? If you understand now that you have a challenge with slow order processing, bottlenecks in new customer onboarding, you can leverage those insights, those new insights that these tools have provided you, to not only resolve and improve things on an analysis and research basis, but also as your business operates. The other interesting part is that the features and functionality of these process improvement and process intelligence tools is just exploding. You have new capabilities that are being implemented every single month that can really help you understand not just what has already happened in that analysis capability, but in a lot of cases, what is happening right now, right? Looking at your process in a live type of scenario, and what will happen, right? What are the problems that could happen because of patterns in the data, AI recognition, and other things that these tools can discover. The other key reason that I always encourage businesses to explore operationalizing process mining is because businesses, like humans, have a tendency to slip back into old habits. So if you take the time to resolve or improve a process, it is so important that you now monitor that on an ongoing basis. And when I say monitor, it doesn't necessarily always have to be a KPI that gets looked at every day, but it could be as frequent as we're going to do a health check every 3 months on this process. But you want to ensure that it becomes part of the operation to make sure and monitor that the improvements that you have made, one, remain in place. You don't slip back into those old habits, and you should never be done, right? Continuous improvement should really become part of your culture where once you've done the first 10%, let's move on to the next 10%. And let's continue to strive to improve our business at every step. The other thing that operationalizing process mining does is it really allows you to start thinking about how do you intervene mid-process, right? It's not just after the fact training, system changes, and automation, but it can be intervening while the process is occurring. If you have certain SLAs that you want to ensure are hit, if they are at risk, let's make sure the people who can intervene know that they're at risk, right? Let's not just wait till after the fact and look at the fact that we've missed that SLA and why, but let's take a proactive approach and notify leaders of potential upcoming issues. What are the problems that we are about to have? Let's step in when something is taking longer than 48 hours, longer than 24 hours, whatever your SLA is, and let's make sure we tell the right people so that they can take action. The other thing about operationalizing process intelligence tools, and specifically process mining, is you can take advantage of these new metrics to monitor your business. So as I mentioned before, you're really uncovering a whole new way to look at your business and a whole new set of ideas on how you can improve it. So let's take advantage of those new ideas and those new metrics, cycle times, timing between steps within your business, and let's operationalize those insights, including leveraging, as I mentioned before, some of these really new and exciting tools that are being implemented into process intelligence platforms, like predictive AI, right? Start to get warned of potential issues, right? Before you run into that brick wall, let's leverage the tools that we have available to warn us that there's a brick wall ahead. Now, we've done so many implementations, I can't even count, for businesses of all shapes, sizes, different industries. And really a question that I commonly get is, when do we operationalize, right? When do we take this from a analysis that we're gonna do into something we're gonna implement on our data as part of our day-to-day running of our business? And my response to all businesses is typically the same: as soon as possible, right? You're now discovering bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and other new insights about your business operations. Why wait? Once the data has been validated and you're sure that it's accurate, you're sure the process flows are correct, operationalize it as soon as you start to discover those challenges. You know, if you think about how you improve your business, what you can do is take that proactive and reactive step and implement them both. Meaning that if we discovered a bottleneck somewhere in the process, right? It's taking too long to do something. Let's set up notifications, alerts, and proactive steps while we work on a long-term solution to stop it from ever occurring again, right? And those don't have to be conflicting things, they can work together. That way you're implementing at least solutions that can make sure that someone can intervene while the permanent solution is being developed. And it really gives businesses the best of both worlds. You know, if you think about an example, in these very uncertain times, obviously cash flow is near and dear to every business's heart. Accounts receivable is something we talk about all the time with customers. So, you know, if you think about an example, imagine you discover as part of your process improvement project that there is delays in your accounts receivable. And maybe that delay is sending invoices to customers. And I know it sounds crazy, but we see it occur in a large number of businesses. There are these internal delays. There's a whole wide reason why they occur, but there are delays in getting invoices to customers. So obviously at the highest level, we want to eliminate those delays as a business. We don't want any delay. We want to issue our invoices to customers as fast as possible. And now that we've discovered that, we're going to implement the root cause analysis, maybe some automation, some additional system change, whatever it is within your business to get rid of those delays. But those projects typically don't happen overnight. So while that project is in flight, leverage these insights, the fact that you have the ability to analyze the steps in the process, understand how long they're taking, and analyze that data as part of your day-to-day to start notifying the people that need to be aware, again, so they can take action. So we're not just waiting for these longer term fixes and these longer term projects to take fruition, but we're implementing solutions as we go along in our process improvement journey. Now, as we consider this, there are many things to think about when we start thinking about operationalizing process improvement in general, because it does add a new dimension to what we are doing. So one of the first things to really focus on and think about is the idea of what is your business objective? And again, a very simple thing to think about, but it is a step that we see time and time and again that's overlooked, right? What are you trying to achieve? Why are we doing a business process improvement project? Why are we looking at process intelligence? Why have we implemented a process mining platform? What is it that is fundamental to our business that we are looking to achieve, right? And know what problem the business is trying to solve, right? There is a reason that you kicked off this project. There is a reason that you are taking on these initiatives. And the first and most fundamental thing to operationalize is what's going to help drive those answers and those needs. So a great example, we recently expanded with a Fortune 500 company and are looking at their sales order process, right? In large, complex businesses, these are complex processes that have a number of potential areas that you could look to try and improve. Is it our shipping receiving, right? Is it our order processing? Is it our order entry? Is it materials management? What is the step within that very complex process that we want to look at to drive improvements? In this case, we started off with a very simple business need, right? Because the business had really never looked at how they run in this type of format before, right? Process discovery, process mining, process intelligence was new to them. So they didn't necessarily know what questions to ask. But what they started off with a fundamental business need. We regularly see our sales orders getting blocked. And they knew they had a number of internal blocks and number of internal things that happen to these sales orders. But that was the first ask. We see our sales orders getting blocked and we want to understand why it's happening, what's causing it, what these blocks are, what the root cause analysis on it, and what we can do to help remove some of those to improve the overall cycle times of sales order processing. So in that case, the first step is obviously discovery, but the next step is, now that we know that there is an expectation of processing orders in a certain time frame, we can now, as part of the project, implement some of these operationalized efforts and these alerts and notifications so that we don't continue the problem as we implement more permanent solutions, so that we can notify managers. So who needs to be involved as we think about things to consider in a process mining project? So obviously, number one, we need to understand what matters to the business. What's the objective? What's the problem we're trying to solve? And that is an important question to answer first, because process mining will uncover so many opportunities within whatever process flow that you are starting to look at, that there's a lot to take on. And you really need to understand what matters to the business first, because results will drive more effort and more buy-in. So getting the business what they need or what they believe they need first, and then moving on to some of the other discoveries. But as part of that, you also need to know who needs them, right? If you are talking about operationalizing process mining, who is the person that is going to action those insights? Is this a manager? Is this an analyst? Is this an operations person? But who needs to be involved, and who do we need to deliver that information to? And why that's important is you may have an executive sponsor that is a VP level, But if you start delivering alerts and notifications and operationalizing process mining at that level, and that VP is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, what you end up with is alerts that fall on deaf ears. So you're telling people that they need to intervene in a process, but that person is not in a position to action those. So make sure that you understand within the business who is the person that you need to deliver those insights to so that they can take action, right? So who is actually in the mix of running the process that can step into it mid-stroke, right? If it's an approval bottleneck, maybe there is a mid-level manager that you can deliver these insights to that can play secondary approver when things get stuck. But those types of ideas really need to be considered as to who we deliver those actionable insights to. Because again, success will breed success. So if you want your project to be successful, put the insights in the hands of people who can make it successful so you can show that it is having the results that were expected and requested by the business. And we see that it also typically leads to, wow, we're getting these new discoveries. Wow, we have implementations that are very beneficial and that are actually starting to improve cycle times. We're getting more efficient. They will lead to further projects or further involvement of more parties along your process improvement journey. The other thing to consider when you start looking at operationalizing process mining is how quickly do they need the information, right? Understand your process flows and understand that providing someone an alert 48 hours in a process that usually is completed within 36 hours is not going to be beneficial. So process mining gives you a number of insightful discoveries, and some of them is obviously average time between steps in the process. So if we now know that going from A to B takes about 48 hours and B to C takes about 72 hours, if we see that going from A to B is our biggest process bottleneck that we can start to intervene on, now you know that your proactive operationalized notifications need to be set to be below that 48-hour mark, right? If 48 hours is your barrier. But understand how often these insights need to be in play in order for someone to take action. And all of these things that I'm talking about now are really questions that you can ask of the business as you are kicking off your project and as you are discovering some of the first opportunities. But they have massive impact on your ability to use your process intelligence discoveries to improve the business's overall workflow. Now, one of the final things as we look at operationalizing process mining and these discoveries that you get from process intelligence and business process improvement projects is a concept known as near real time, right? If we want to operationalize process insights, for some businesses, they execute very quickly. And that means that they need to start considering approaching near real time for the data. For those of you that are new to process mining and process intelligence, when I talk about near real time, it's really about the data refresh. You know, in the example that I gave earlier about this large complex business that we just expanded with a sales order process, there is multiple systems and I think over 47 different tables within just one of these systems that we need to get the data from in order to show them the end-to-end sales order process. So when we think about near real time, it's really about how quickly is the data being populated into your process intelligence tool so that you can deliver those insights to the business in the time frame that they need them. So near real time data refresh is not as simple as click of a button, right? When you start to approach this type of need within your business, you need to understand a number of things and really discuss that need with either consultants you're working with, the individuals or company that you've purchased your platform from, or other people who are experts in this. Because the first step is that data refresh, and there's a lot to consider there, right? When you think about operationalizing process insights now all the way into near real time. Are you a cloud system, and does your cloud system limit the data refresh cycles? Are you on premise, and is there different internet connectivity timeframes that you need to consider? But how quickly do you need that data to be refreshed? And what are the impacts and limitations that you're going to see as part of that? The next thing that I talk to businesses about is aligning those proactive alerts and notifications to the business requirements. Understand exactly what they need to know. You could have a process with 47 different steps, but maybe it's just step 12 and 13 that they need to intervene on for now. So really dial into what is it exactly the business needs to know in order to affect the process as part of the day-to-day operation, and dial in your notification requirements to meet that specific need. And why that is essential is you're going to see that each one of these things, as you try and approach to near real time within your operation, they piggyback on one another. So aligning those alerts is important because the size of the data can be quite significant, right? You can talk terabytes and terabytes of data for larger scale organizations, and being able to refresh that data so you can alert someone in near real time is extremely difficult. So when we talk about that, I'm not sure what happened on my screen here, but let's just back that up a sec. So when we talk about near real time, we talk about it in a concept of something that's very important, which is considering implementing a dedicated data set for operationalizing these type of alerts and notifications. Because terabytes and terabytes of data is going to be difficult to refresh at a frequency that allows you to approach near real time. So understand what your data refresh limitations are, if any. Understand what the business wants out of the data. Are there specific steps that they want to be notified on, timing they want to be notified on, and information they need in those notifications? And design a secondary data set, or a dedicated data set, as I like to call it, for this near real-time approach. Because the data is large, understanding the constructs and isolating those constructs of the data into a dedicated data set that is more slimmed down to only required activities and required attributes or fields that you want to inform the business on, will allow you to get much closer to approaching that near real-time objective. And then really it's about time testing and adjusting, right? If you don't know necessarily every possible combination, follow this 4-step process, time test how close you can get to near real time, and then isolate or adjust from there. So you may start off with a very, very small data set, and then you may discover that you can very easily approach near real time with that. So you may want to add a little bit more information to it, but make those adjustments as you go. And within that 4-step process, now you can not only take your process mining analysis, but you can move it into operationalizing for alerts, understanding what the business needs, and then even driving it as you continue to mature all the way into near real-time impact on your business operation. So with that, thank you everyone. Again, my name is James Henderson, CEO of Mindsy, Process Mining Simplified. If you don't get a chance to get your question asked or answered today, my contact information is up on the screen here, james.henderson@mindsy.com, 469-919-7133. Happy to talk anytime or answer your questions by email. But at this time, Jim, I'll open it up to you. If you can go through any of the panel questions that we may have received along the way.
Yes, excellent presentation, James. You make it sound very simple, which is good because this is near and dear to my heart, process mining. It is really an excellent way to really understand your business, understand your bottlenecks in your business, and bring those out so that with those risk alerts, which I love what you talked about, you know, that we can unbottleneck the company in that near real-time environment. You know, coming as a Six Sigma master black belt and mapping all processes, this is like a godsend to me because as soon as you draw a process map, it's out of date. In process mining, as the process changes, you see it real time. So it's fantastic to see you simplifying it even further than even the early days in process mining. So thank you. One of the questions I see here, is it best to work with only one group or should you involve multiple managers at the same time?
You know, what my response to that, Jim, would really be, you really need to understand what helps you get the best impact to your business. When you look at your project, look at the potential impact across the business and let that be your sort of guiding light as to who you should involve. The one thing I always do caution businesses on is a lot of times process mining gets involved in processes that stem across departments. Let's take even something like a service ticket process where you have your support team that's dealing with the service ticket, but they might escalate it into engineering as well, and engineering may have a portion to play within that service ticket resolution. Isolating the information only to the service team, I think does your process improvement project a disservice. You really need to understand that whatever department plays a role in that process should get information to help improve that process as well.
Well, that really leads into another question along those lines, is the role of value stream mapping relative to process mining. Should you be kind of value stream mapping your end-to-end business first before you do process mining, or should you dive in? What's your recommendation there from your experience?
I'm not opposed to it, but I like to add a bit of personal opinion, having operated a business along the way as well. There is a balance between undercomplicating and overcomplicating a project. And overcomplicating a project always adds time. And time can be sometimes the killer of projects as much as it can be beneficial, right? So when you are dealing with executives, their plates are full, patience is usually limited, and they want results.
Yeah. So
value stream mapping can add a tremendous benefit, but I always caution, don't lump too much into the project at inception, and some of it needs to be worked along as you go. The best way to get process improvement, process intelligent projects from curiosity to success is results, right? Mm-hmm. And as you do that, you can get results for the initial department that was curious about improving the process, while you look at how that value stream cascades across the business, and then maybe add from there. But it doesn't have to be, I need to complete all of these projects and front load everything, because you don't want to turn this into a 9 to 12 month endeavor. Because if I was sitting in the seat again, Jim, my problem would be after 3 months, where's my results for all of this money that I put out? And if I have no results, my drive to continue the project starts to wane.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think most businesses have a 3 months tolerance for a project. No longer 6 months, 12 months, or a year for projects. We need to see results faster. With all these tools like process mining, there's really no reason why you can't get those results in 3 months, right?
That's exactly it. And part of it is scoping it accordingly. Don't try and eat the elephant in one bite. right? You might know that there is more to the process. There's other systems we want to connect. There's other departments we want to involve. But, you know, start off with your 1, 2, 3 core systems, your core departments, and get them results. And once the business sees, and you can go to an executive and say, hey, we've improved our procurement cycle times, we've improved our service ticket closure rates, right? We're far more efficient. Our customer happiness has gone up. Our customer onboarding is faster. They will want more, right?
Yeah.
Success will breed success.
Absolutely. I love that. Success will breed success. That's a mantra to live by in improvement. Another question, for preparing data, what do you do if your data set is too large, quite big, and then this quest to get near real time with large data sets? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so you know, never be afraid of data that is too large or too big. That should not be a hindrance of process intelligence or process mining, right? If data is too large or too big, then you really need to rethink the platform that you've selected. But if you've already selected a platform and that is an issue, there are ways to address that, right? And there are sometimes simple ways, right? Start slicing the data, filter the data for certain objectives, right? Maybe you want to look at the last 3 years, but that data set is too large. So let's start off with the last 3 or 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ingest something that is palatable by the platform that you're using. Maybe isolate it by division or by company and isolate it there. But there's ways to manage those data sets. Size of data should never be an issue, but if you come across it, you can probably do some clever things to manage that data. As you move towards near real time, that is the beauty of process intelligence, process mining, right? You have made a first discovery. Use that big data set to make your first discovery and understand then where you want to focus on those near real-time efforts. And once you understand where you want to focus on those near real-time efforts, then I always recommend to businesses to explore, as I mentioned in my presentation, developing a dedicated data set to do so. You don't want to try and take a 5 terabyte data. It's going to be taxing on your internal systems, taxing on your cloud systems, and push that into near real time. And odds are you're probably not going to get as close as you want. But you don't necessarily need all of that data to get those near real time insights that you're looking for anyway. So understand where those opportunities are, what you want to deliver, and then you can start to isolate that data set or create a secondary one that helps you achieve that near real time timing.
So tied to that, from a data perspective, I always find it interesting, you know, of how do you, getting good, clean data. So when you're taking data out of ERPs and it may be incomplete, or you're looking for more data to expand, and where do you draw the line on how much data do you need to tell the story when your ERP may not be collecting the data that is actually being translated by the people actually doing the work? And how do you adjust to those types of situations?
I love analogies, as I mentioned earlier. For those of you that have children on the call, or those that don't and have seen children, it's crawl, walk, run, right? If you've ever raised a child, you don't take a baby out of the crib and say run, right? That ends very poorly. And how that translates into this particular data question is crawl, walk, run. Don't try and boil the ocean, right? Don't try and take every piece of data, every complex step that happens in the process, evolve into that. What are the fundamental process steps that you need to be aware of? Is there an entry point, an approval point, a delivery point, a shipped point, a paid point, whatever those key fundamental process steps are? Get that information, get it right, validate it, and then it will help, again, as part of the discovery, to guide where to spend your time to start to crawl, right? Or start to walk, right? Look at the biggest bottlenecks in between those two fundamental steps and say, okay, I now want to look here to here. But when you try and take it all on at once, unless you're dealing with an organization that has a connector for your system that's done it, which is obviously the best bet, right? Pre-built connector that will do 99% of this for you. And then you'll need to do some tweaks. But if you're doing it on your own, get the fundamental steps, allow those fundamental steps to guide you in terms of timing or insights as to what other steps you need to fill in the gaps, and then start filling it in. But crawl, walk, run.
Beautiful answer. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, another question here. You mentioned operationalize process mining right from the start. Are there key areas that you would recommend businesses to look at for their first operational implementation? Where should they start? Finance, sales, call center? Where do you see the greatest?
It depends on the business's operation. What does that business do? You know, an easy answer there is finance and sales. You want to get an executive's attention, talk about how their business gets paid and bringing in more money. Anything you can do around that is an easy answer. But if you're a call center, it's not only about getting paid, but it's also about efficiency within the call center. How do we scale with efficiency? How do we deliver a better product to our business and to our customers, right? If you're a financial institution, maybe it's customer onboarding, right? You want to reduce that attrition of things taking too long and people falling out of the process. So where you operationalize really should be focused, as I stated earlier in the presentation, about where is the biggest pain point for that business today, right? If they say we have too much customer fallout, then that should be your first point. Let's discover what's driving the fallout. Let's understand the timing impacts that it has, and then start to operationalize from there, so that while we are improving the business process holistically, we can intervene on a day-to-day. Right? Sales processes are a great example. You know, it's an easy one to look at, but to say, okay, if there are process timing insights that lead to good outcomes, a win, versus bad outcomes, a loss, operationalize so that your sales managers get those early warning signs. If they don't move from step 1 to step 2 within 2 weeks, we now have an 80% failure rate. We lose more deals than we win. So get a sales manager the list of opportunities that haven't advanced in those stages fast enough so that you can have them step in and intervene in the process.
So another question just came in about really when to launch process mining relative to robotics process automation, hyper automation, and you know, how do you see the two working together, and you know, what should be companies' you know, their priorities on when and how to implement these different technologies that are helping processes become visible and automation?
Yeah, I'd say, again, going back to analogies, you would never pull apart a car's engine if you don't know how it works, right? That's just a bad idea. You're going to be left with a bunch of pieces that don't work properly and a car that doesn't start. Process mining is a linchpin in successful process improvement. You need to know what is happening before you take steps to try and change it. If not, you really cannot understand, one, are we investing in the right area of the process, right? That we're going to get the best return on investment, and what effect is that going to have? Is it really going to make it better? You know, if you look at some of the surveys that have been done, it's something like 60% of automation projects fail to deliver on expectation. And that's not a failure of the technology or the platforms. It's really a failure of, we didn't understand how our business worked and where we should apply that technology. So I always encourage businesses in any automation, in any digital twin exercise, in any you know, process improvement project, the first step should really be about discovery. Understand how your business works, and then make the changes and implement the technologies to improve it.
Excellent. I really enjoyed your responses, James. strong believer in everything you said. So I'm right there with you. Automating processes that are broken doesn't really, it's not very sustainable. But
No.
yet, the shame is that, RPA and hyper automation, it's good that we're doing it, but if you don't understand your underlying data, as you said, if you don't understand, the broken processes behind that, you're going to go in circles. You're not going to get where you think you're going to get. You'll have short-term results, and then you'll wonder why the bottom fell out.
100%. And in this final minute, Jim, if I may add, because it's
Sure.
a question that I get a lot, which is how do you get the business to buy in to process mining
Sure.
in general? And I go back to the same thing that I always tell people: crawl, walk, run, right? If you're trying to get your executives to buy into this massive transformational project where they don't understand process mining, they're not maybe as technical as others, and this is really new to the entire business, it's difficult to convince someone that they need to apply this across the entire enterprise and it'll transform the business, right? It's hard for them to fathom, it's hard for them to quantify, and it'll be hard for them to buy into. But there are other ways that you can crawl, walk, run, right? Start off with a basic tool, a desktop implementation, get some sample data, and get some initial discoveries so that as you're trying to justify to the business why this is going to be helpful, you can show them with your own data. Look, here's what we've discovered. This is just an initial snapshot of our process, potential bottlenecks, things that we can resolve, why things are taking so long. But you can get them some basic insights to start small and then evolve into even some of the things that we're talking about today, which is enterprise class systems and near real time. But start off with some initial discoveries and grow into your journey. And I think you will find that you have a lot less barriers to entry. We know, for those that are on the call, that process mining is immensely powerful and beneficial to businesses, but we are in the space. So we understand that and we've seen it firsthand. Don't assume the same of your executives. Help teach them in that crawl, walk, run type of an evolution.
All right. Well, thanks, James. Beautiful synopsis of the talk today. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. And if you have any questions for James, please reach out to him directly, as you see on the screen. And your presentation will be available for everybody to download. Is that right?
Yep, we'll put it up for download as well.
Great. Thanks so much, James. And with that, we're signing off, James, and we'll get ready for the next speaker coming at the top of the hour. At the top of the hour, we'll have Dr. Jan Ricken from Luxembourg, our final speaker of the day. Thank you. We'll catch you at the top of the hour. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Bye.
Thank you.